Tokyolive Endoscopy 1.
So hello everyone. Today we have a very special session talking about the ukiyo-e, so Japanese woodblock painting. This session title is My Story of Ukiyo-e. So today we have a great guest. So it's not necessary to introduce him as an endoscopist. Everybody know him very well, but he is also a long-term collector of Japanese ukiyo-e. So when he came to Japan, actually many times, he quite often visited ukiyo-e shop at Nihonbashi. So where there are several Japanese antique shops. So before starting his great lecture, so I have a very short introduction slide. So, okay, so ukiyo-e, so right hand side, you can see Japanese letters. So ukiyo-e is flourished from the 17th to 19th centuries. So wood block prints, and the ukiyo-e itself can translate as the picture of the current floating world. The meaning of the ukiyo-e is like that. So most famous one, I think, the Great Wave, Hokusai, and his Mount Fuji, Fugaku Hyakke in Japanese, as also very famous. So, ukiyo-e, I think, so they already use the technique of image enhancement, I think. So, ukiyo-e, so well contrasted with a sharp margin and very colorful, like illustrated. And the perspective drawing technique also used, and the symbolization. It's a very similarity we have, like endoscopic imaging. So Kelly, please start your lecture.
So a great thank you, Haru, Professor Inoue, for your kind invitation to give this lecture about my personal collection of Japanese ukiyo-e. You know that in the past I gave a lecture, I compare the influence of ukiyo-es on European painting to the influence of Japanese endoscopists on the European endoscopists for the same reasons. So this time I will more focus on my own collection. And this was a picture I took 3 years ago, 2019, with you at Tokyolive. Tokyolive, for me, is a fantastic event to learn ESD and also diagnosis endoscopy. So briefly, I will repeat what you have heard already. Ukiyo-es are wood block prints. They are prints, and they begin in the 12th centuries during the Kamakura period, and they became very popular from 17th to 19th century during the Edo period. For all people more or less from Japan, the samurai, the shonin, and even the nomin classes, and because of the private schools called terakoya, because they spread education using ukiyo-es. In the past, you had 600 shops in Edo for ukiyo-es, and now you have only very few in Nihonbashi. Only very few. I visited Nihonbashi and the different shops. You have only very few, unfortunately. In 18th century, Suzuki Harunobu introduced the technique of multicolor printing called Nishiki-e and then ukiyo-e. I learned about Harunobu technique in Edo Tokyo Museum, which is a fantastic museum, which has to be visited by all visitors from outside, but also visitors from Japan, for example. I visited it several times. You have a lot of interesting exhibition about Japan from the past or Japan from 19th century. And this is a famous UKIYOE from Hiroshige, plum tree. And you see how the plum tree is printed step by step using different wood block. You see wood block with different colors, and they apply the colors on different wood block like this all along. And you see from right to left how the progressively the UKIYOE is completed, okay, using different colors. And you see here, for example, reproduce this part, that means of a tree, you have this wood print, wood block. And to have a frame, you have another wood block, etc., etc. So you have a succession of wood block with different colors. And so I learned a lot. And the question is, maybe it is surprising for you, Haru, why can you find Japanese UKIYOE in France? You can still buy recent UKIYOEs from Hiroshige, Okuzai, from recent wood block. They are the same, but of course different. They have been recently built in Japan, but when you go in a large shop in Tokyo, okay, you can find UKIYOEs, but very recent UKIYOEs. But you have to know that a wood block does last maybe 40, 50 times. Then you have to change them. The more interesting pieces in France are from 19th century. Then they are quite expensive in comparison to the modern UKIYOEs. And why? Why? Because before 1854, famous convention of Kanagawa, Westerners paid little notice to Japanese art, and some UKIYOEs were imported from Nagasaki, which was the harbor. This was the only harbor open for foreigners, and it was a Dutch trading statement, as you know. And following 1854, the Japanese harbor opened to the foreigners, and then suddenly the Westerners, Europeans, were fascinated by the Japanese culture. And in 1867, 1867 and 78, you had two international exhibitions in Paris, and this was the first, in fact, Japanese house presented during the first exhibition. At this time, UKIYOEs were very cheap in Japan, and some were used to pack Japanese goods for Europe. So you sent a lot of very cheap UKIYOEs just to pack Japanese goods. And then Japanese culture, at the end of the 19th century, became very fashionable in Western countries, in Paris, in Boston. And they call this period, or this fascination, Japanese. A lot of Japanese UKIYOEs were imported. Even more, some Japanese traders were accused by Japanese people to steal Japanese treasures for Europe. And UKIYOEs were collected by Europeans, especially European artists. And one of the famous artists is Claude Monet. He had a collection of 231 UKIYOEs. This is Claude Monet. He's in house north of Paris in Normandy, Giverny. He has a fantastic house with a fantastic garden, and he has a small lake with a Japanese bridge. And this is Monet. And you see UKIYOEs behind Monet. And now you see the same room, but now. So Claude Monet was fascinated by UKIYOEs. And why UKIYOEs influenced Impressionists? And first of all, Impressionists, they just copy and they imitate. This was the first step. They imitate, such as Van Gogh, you see the famous plum tree, okay? Whistler, also, you see the bridge, exactly, more or less, exactly the same. Van Gogh, also another bridge. And even Monet, this is from a French island, you see, really, they imitated UKIYOEs. And not only imitated, but sometimes they use also UKIYOEs in their own paintings. So this is Manet, and you see some UKIYOEs. Monet, he reproduced a kimono, okay, a nice lady with a kimono. more or less looking like an UKIYOE, Monet. Van Gogh also, probably a kabuki character. And Van Gogh also here, you see some UKIYOEs behind this character. So this was the first stage. The second stage, UKIYOEs influence painting itself. They don't only copy, they don't only imitate, that it does influence Impressionists. And I have 3 observations. In UKIYOEs, you see plenty of details and very sharp edge. And then you have general, nevertheless, you have a general impression. If you see this UKIYOEs from Hiroshige, it's more or less exactly the same than the Japanese bridge from the garden of Monet. Plenty of details, and in Impressionists, we call this pointillisme. When you have plenty of details, at the end, it's like a photo, plenty of details, and at the end, you see a landscape. Van Gogh also was influenced. You see, this is from Hiroshige, Ueno, one of the views of Edo, and this is the Ueno, and you see exactly the same drawing, exactly the same details of the leaves. Fantastic, not an imitation, but fantastic influence. Same from Monet. You see the trees look exactly the same Monet than the one from Hiroshige, the 53 stages of Tokaido. And also Van Gogh, this is one of my UKIYOEs, and you see Hiroshige, and on the left, Van Gogh. You see the tortoise trunks and the leaves, a lot of details, and this does explain the influence of UKIYOEs and Impressionists. And also modest people. You see modest people on Hiroshige UKIYOEs, a lot of modest people, and you see these modest people also on Van Gogh. So very interesting. Second point, changing colors. Of course, this is the famous Okuzai UKIYOEs from Mount Fuji, and Mount Fuji looks red because of the sun. And you see Gauguin, also they change the color of the mountain. The color also appears pink or brown. And also Cerisier, you see the trunk, they appear blue. So changing colors, this was also used by the Nabis. This was a school derived from Impressionists. They are still considered as Impressionists, such as Gauguin, Vuillard, Bonnard, Denis, Cerisier. So clearly they were influenced by Japan. And the third point, it's very impressive, changing perspectives. You see the different Mount Fuji by Hiroshige, different views of Mount Fuji by Hiroshige, and the different views of the Cathedral of Rouen by Monet, with different colors also. You change the color, you change the perspectives, you change the perspectives also. This is a famous collection of Monet painting, Les Meules, Estacs, clearly influenced by UKIYOEs. So this is the history. And I first collected Netsuke, and not UKIYOEs. Huh? Netsuke are a small piece of bone or ivory or wood, which were used to hold, we call the inoro, or sagemono, I think, inoro. This was a small box to collect coins or to collect tobacco. And this is a Netsuke attached inoro to the obi, which was more or less the belt. So, but unfortunately, I sold my collection. Okay, I sold my collection. I need some money. I sold my collection of Netsuke. And then moved to UKIYOE. When I saw the collection of Monet and the collection of Clemenceau, he won the First World War for the French, and you see at the war, and he was a great friend of Claude Monet, and this is his house along the sea, Atlantic Sea. And Koinobori, he has also plenty of UKIYOEs at home, and this is a fantastic house also. So when I saw this collection, I collected UKIYOEs. And these are some of my UKIYOEs in my, this is a room with different ceramics, different paintings, and UKIYOEs are here. And my first UKIYOEs are from Hiroshige, here. So this, you recognize the same, the Meiko Beach, 100 famous views in the various provinces from Hiroshige, the plum tree, I have a plum tree. This is from probably 1870. It's quite interesting ukiyo-es from the 100 views of Edo from at Kamedo. This is also bridge, the Kintai Bridge at Iwakuni in Suo province, and it's also one of 100 famous views in the various provinces. I must explain, Aru, that this is just a small part of my collection, because ukiyo-es look like in an album. You have an album of ukiyo-es, and you put at a bank, for example, to protect them, or to avoid people to steal them, because they are quite expensive. Second ukiyo-es, also Hiroshige. On the flea market, I bought on a flea market, this one. And if you have a look on this one, you see there are the different stages of Tokaido. Tokaido was the road between Edo and Kyoto. And these are well known, Nizaka, Shinagawa, close to Tokyo, south of Tokyo, Shinagawa. And this one, I don't know where is it from. Probably this is a Tokaido stage, or maybe another series from Hiroshige. I don't know where it is from. I tried to find, I could not find so far. But this one is very, very nice. This one is very, very old. One of the first from Hiroshige. I brought this one to Nihonbashi, and they wanted to buy this one. A lot of money to me. Okay? The shops at this time. I continue to buy ancient Hiroshige ukiyo-e. You see fishers or Tokaido stage, the famous Kambara sightseeing, okay, and different fishermen here. So these are all in my different rooms in my house. Also, my third ukiyo is Kuniyoshi. Kuniyoshi. I am a specialist of Kuniyoshi, and in details, these are Kuniyoshi is my favorite. You see, these are biographies of royal and righteous samurai. These are samurai. This is samurai. These are samurai. This is Kunisada. This is not Kuniyoshi. And this is this is another series from Kuniyoshi. And these are from Kisokaido stages. Okay, Kume-sanin and the washerwoman. In fact, he wanted to look at this woman, and finally he fell down in the river. Also, the stories of wise and virtuous women. These are also part of my collection. And why I was interested by Kuniyoshi. Kuniyoshi is very, very popular. It was initially not well considered in Japan in comparison to Hiroshige, Okuzai, Utamaro, Sharaku. Then it became popular since 1850 in Japan, and there was a fantastic exhibition in Paris, and they say Kuniyoshi is the devil of ukiyo-e. Is the devil of ukiyo-e. And why? And I will explain why. And there was another recent exhibition in France in a museum dedicated to Oriental arts. And this was, they explained the road of Kisokaido. Kisokaido is an alternative road to Tokaido in the mountain, more or less in the mountain. And from Hiroshige to Kuniyoshi, okay? And Kuniyoshi is now as well known as Hiroshige. Why? There are four characteristics for Kuniyoshi ukiyo-e. You have a rich iconography and a kinetic composition. You can see, really fantastic. And Kuniyoshi considered as a precursor of heroic fantasy in Japan and outside Japan, because of this colorful and rich ukiyo-es, such as this one. You see, very special, very particular, and very kinetic. Second part, the caricatural representation, for example, of kabuki actors. They look like this is a caricature. They are not real. Huh? They look aggressive. Huh? Okay. And even more, you see, this one is made of small bodies like this, and probably it has been influenced by an Italian called Arcimboldo, because at this time Japan was open. Probably Kuniyoshi imitated Arcimboldo, but very impressive character. Plenty of animals, from cats, black cats, very kind cats, to more aggressive animals, such as this fish, lobster, this bird, etc., and this tiger. So very rich iconography and different animals. And finally, this was very specific Kuniyoshi. It combined landscape, such as Hiroshige, okay, plus character. And this was very unusual. So you have a lot of character, and these are also from the 69 Kisokaido stages. So I have over Japanese prints from Kunisada, Kunichika also. I mixed them with German prints, okay, of animals, you see, and Brazilian prints. You see Rio de Janeiro. So I made a combination in my room. I have also some ukiyo-es from Yukini. See, also very fantastic ukiyo-es master. And I have some, I don't know where are the authors. And some are quite interesting. They are from the war in between Japan and China, okay? And at this stage, you see, these are more recent. They are from 12th, 20th century. See, they are from 20th century. Usually, Japanese defeated Chinese on these ukiyo-es, of course. Huh? You see? And finally, just to finish, I not only collect ukiyo-es, but also collect ceramics from France and some paintings. You see different ceramics, but I have plenty. These are my kitchen. And a lot of ukiyo-es and a lot of ceramics behind me, and quite fantastic ceramics. They more or less imitated Japanese ceramics, but they are French. And I have also some Japanese plants in my garden. This is some parts of my garden. It's more or less like a jungle, okay? But I have some plants from Japan, some Japanese acer, locat here, okay? I'm sorry, this is a camellia, of course, and this is Hydrangea acerata and Pieris. So also Japanese plants are very, very popular around the world. And I have some of them. I'm always interested to collect, not to collect, but to have Japanese plants in my garden. So this is my conclusion. Also for endoscopy, we have to thank the Japanese school. We imitate and we learn a lot from our Japanese colleagues when we perform endoscopy in France and in Europe. A great thank you to our Japanese colleagues and a great thank you to Haru, of course, for his kind invitation, but also for all he has done for endoscopy, myotomy, the cap. He's a fantastic teacher. A great thank you.
So Thierry, thank you so much for such an excellent talk. So we are so impressed. So you know the Japan better than us. So for example, you said that the Kiso Kaido is an alternative to Tokaido. So, and actually, I personally talked with the Thierry. So you visited so many good places, local place, good places in Japan. You visited. I never visited. So, and I also, it's a big surprise. So your house is now like a museum.
Yeah, this is the problem I have. I have more or less 4,000 ceramics, and I must say that my wife, the house is large, and I have also a large house in the mountains. My wife is complaining now. This is the problem. But at the end, I think I will open a museum.
You have to. And you mentioned that in the field of endoscopy, so you said that the Japanese school, but I think in the field of medicine, actually we learn each other. So for example, so in Japan, the Western medicine came from Europe. So you also mentioned the Nagasaki Dejima. It's a one island, so open to the Europe or world. So the 16th century or like that. So at the time, so lots of so medicine came from Europe. So at that time, so Tahel Anatomia. So maybe my pronunciation not so good, but Holland yes. Medicine. So some Japanese guys translated the Holland medicine to Japanese. So that's our Maeno Sugita Genpak and Maeno Ryotaku. So two Japanese doctor translate the anatomical textbook from Holland to Japanese. Yeah.
So we need to learn one from each other. Probably that I observe that in Europe we develop empirism. Okay, empirism. So this is a scientific concept. So we observe a nature and then we conclude. Okay. And for example, we conduct randomized studies and we conclude. And this was really important by Europe or by USA. On the opposite, in Japan, and this is really the Japanese spirit. You never, when you see a polyp, you never say, this is an adenoma, this is a hyperplastic lesion, this is, etc. No, you say, you have some, look at the pit, they are like this, look at the vessels, they are like this, look at the general pattern, and then at the end, from all these details, you conclude. So this is a deduction. In France, it is intuitive. You say, well, yes, it is. This is, but then sometimes we are wrong. And at the end, we have to learn to observe from our Japanese colleagues and then to
analyze and then summarize. Yeah.
Yes. And then you need good pictures because in Europe, we don't have so good pictures, but in Japan, you have good pictures.
No, I don't think so. And also in the field of surgery, it's quite interesting. So for example, we call the forceps the PN. PN is maybe from a French doctor. And also famous one is a Quino classification of the liver segment. It's a model of the Paris. Is that right? Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. No, but no, the French school for medicine was not so bad, huh? Of course, especially in 19th century, beginning of 20th century. But frankly speaking, in endoscopy, first we had to learn from you, huh? Especially from you, Aru, but from others too. Huh?
Yeah, we learn ELCP from European guys. Yeah.
Yes. ELCP was Kawai, and strength first papillotomy was Kawai and Klassen in the same time.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
It was a competition.
So always it's a sharing the knowledge and the experience and the mutual communication. Communication is the most important and not a one way. So bilateral. So
and for example, laparoscopy. For surgery, laparoscopy for digestive disease, cholecystectomy, etc. It was the first cases were done in Lyon by a surgeon, one of my friends named Mouret. Okay.
Yeah.
And it was great. In fact, unfortunately, he was not a professor, and the French professor did not appreciate him so much. But he was a great inventor. So the main advantage you have, Aru, is that you are an inventor, but a lot of people, as you are surgeons, you are appreciated by your colleagues and also by us.
So thank you very much. So today's, I think today's lecture, it's the best lecture in the Tokyolive. Of course, one of the best, yes. So Thierry, once again, thank you so much. Your great lecture and sharing your mind. It's very nice for us.
But please to forgive me if I was not very right with Japanese arts. But I hope my Japanese colleague will be encouraged to appreciate Japanese arts because Japanese arts are really fantastic.
Yeah, thank you so much. So when I visit the French side, I visit Orsay, and of course, many you have lots of so world leader of a culture. Okay, so thank you very much, Thierry. Great talk.
Okay, thank you, Aru. And my best wishes for the meeting.
Me too. Thank you.